Okay, good evening. It's time to start our meeting. I'm calling to order the meeting of the Oakville Public Library Board of Directors for Thursday, March 25th, 2021. Welcome members of the board, welcome staff. Nice to see everybody on this lovely evening, pre-rain. Jessica, do we have any regrets this evening?
We have regrets from Stephen Bright.
Okay. And other members will join us in progress. Members of the board, do we have any declarations of pecuniary interest to declare this evening? I see none. Hello, Andrew. I didn't see you there. You sort of snuck in on me. Confirmation of the minutes of the previous regular meeting of the board held on February 25th, 2021. Would somebody give me a move? Would somebody like to give me a motion to approve those unless there's any objection or errors or omissions? Andrew, you're moving? Thank you. Second, Susan? Any comments, questions, errors, or omissions to report? Anybody object to the idea of adopting these minutes? Seeing no objection, those are approved. We have a number of items on our consent agenda, 4.1 through 4.3. Would anybody like to separate any of those items? I'm not seeing any separations requested, so would somebody like to move those items? Bill and Susan, thank you very much. Last chance for comments, questions? Objections to the approval of the consent items? I declare those carried. For the sake of public reporting, we just approved consent items 4.1, which is the status of outstanding board reports. 4.2, the Oakville Public Library key agenda items. 4.3, health and safety report. And that takes us to item 5. We have no confidential consent items. And now the heart of the meeting, the discussion item 6.1, year-to-date financial status indicators as of February 28th, 2021.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Oakville Board. So what you have before you is our current financial status as of the end of February. It is still early in the year, so you will see that we're relatively well on track as predicted. There is some variances in staffing, and that was all expected. You'll remember when we talked about the 2021 budget, having to dedicate savings in some of our staffing lines to offset some of the cleaning where we expected to go over. Cleaning this isn't quite as high as we expected because, again, that's because of the closure and the reopening. We reduce some of the cleaning when we're closed to the public, and then we reopen to the public. We brought some of the cleaners back in. So you will see that there will be a little bit below what we were expecting had we remained fully open to date. So those are really the two key factors I wanted to mention, but Belinda and I are happy to answer any questions.
Members of the board, do we have any questions? Janet.
Thanks, Tara. Just under purchase services, the variance seems, is it related to consulting fees or why?
The purchase services that's lower year to date?
Yeah, it just seems like great that it's lower, but what didn't we spend that you thought you would, and is it just deferred?
Well, I think for that one, it's not equal across all the months. So that one you will definitely see some growth as we go through, particularly in terms of the training mileage we reduce. So we're not sure exactly what that will be, but the training lines are in there. Some of the consultants that we have planned to look at come into projects that come in later part of the year. It's just not something we tend to do early on in the year, is spend from there.
Thanks very much for clarifying.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Can I get a motion to receive this report, please? Janet and Andrew, thank you for your motion. Any comments, questions? Any objections to the approval of this receipt? There are no objections. That is received. We're moving on to our policy matter, Safety of Children Library Policy, item 6.2. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. So what you have before you is a new policy. As we mentioned previously, this was a policy that we had to get done for a little while. The report outlines the reason we needed to have this policy. Primarily, the previous ones that we had were a support of the Ontario Library Association statements on the children's rights in the public library and the teens' rights. And those, while we continue to support those statements, there was additional information that was not addressed. We had some procedures in place that were a bit out of date and had to be reviewed as well. The legislation has been updated recently, and so this is a brand new policy. So we're coming forward to you to ask for feedback on the actual policy and to also ask for feedback on the name of the policy. The name of the policy, as we named it currently, is in line with what other public libraries use, but if you think another name would be more appropriate, we're welcoming any feedback you might have.
Questions on this policy? Any further questions? What is the motion to approve this policy? Oh, actually, sorry, I do have a question.
Yes.
Microphone. I'm talking and you're not hearing. Are there any questions on this policy? Andrew, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for preparing this. I had a couple of questions, but primarily there seems to be, I mean, maybe it's not inconsistent. It seems like there might be some inconsistencies in terms of the ages that we're talking about, but more to the point, it may be difficult for parents and caregivers to understand. So just a couple of examples. Children 10 years of age and younger must be supervised, but children older than 10 years of age and up to 18. So a child who's 10 years and a couple of months, are they considered to be 10 and younger or 10 and older? So that was one.
So
I notice also that we've said that a child who's 12 years old is permitted to supervise younger children, but a child who's 12 years old also needs to be supervised by an adult for a virtual program. So I feel like there's a bit of a mixed message there. Like they're old enough to look after other kids, but they're not old enough to mind themselves on a computer screen. And then, I mean, practically speaking, in terms of may not be left alone in the library, I mean, if there's a child who's 8 years old or 9 or 10, who's using the children's area and the parents in another part of the library, is that considered to be, under direct supervision or not? I just don't think it's entirely clear, and I'm worried that you're going to get a range of reactions because it's not clear. That's basically it.
Thank you so much for bringing those forward, and I would like to go through them one by one, but absolutely right in terms of sometimes, obviously we can clean up the writing so that it's more clear, but I just wanted to provide a bit of feedback about the age. I'm not sure how much you know about this, but there isn't an actual age at which a parent should be allowed to leave a child alone. And this comes basically from the training that we had from the Halton Children's Aid Society. There isn't a legal age that says you cannot leave the child alone. A lot of it has to do with, is the child able to be alone? Does the parent feel safe to leave that child alone? As we know, there are children who are probably 12 who a parent might feel uncomfortable leaving alone. So that's the only thing. But it would be great if we could just go through the 3 things that you addressed to make sure that they are addressed properly, to make sure that I understood everything that you said. So you are referring first on page 2 of the policy, right at the top, under children in the library, it says children 10 years of age and younger.
Yes.
And then on the second piece where it says children over the age of 10, the beginning of that says children older than 10 years of age and up to 18. Is that,
right.
Are those the 2 that you're referring to?
Essentially, because I think it's ambiguous. If there's a child who has had their 10th birthday but not yet had their 11th.
Right. So
are they considered to be 10 years of age, or are they considered to be older than 10 years of age?
Right. Okay, we'll clean that up. The intent is to say once you're 10 years or older. So 10 years and a month, 10 years and 2 months, and so on.
Okay.
So we will clean that up to be more clear. The other comment that you had was about virtual programs.
Yes.
Okay, let me just find that section because that is a new section that we added.
So children in the library, second paragraph.
Yes. So we added that paragraph, clearly you can tell, because of the current situation and because we run children's programs. I will find exactly, I'll tell you what the intent was. The intent was to align with the school boards in terms of when a child goes on into a children's program, to attend a children's program online, that we actually make sure there is a child there. Like in the room, meaning there isn't just an adult logging into a children's program with the camera off.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And you specify that under the age of 13,
Yeah.
cameras are required to be on. Okay.
So I was
But
just.
it says adult supervision is mandatory. It doesn't simply say that they have to have their cameras on.
It does,
So where I'm seeing the inconsistency is where a child who is 12, let's say 12 years and 6 months old, they're not allowed to attend a virtual program without an adult supervising them, but
Okay.
they are allowed to take a younger sibling to the library without an adult.
okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's only about the supervision in the virtual program.
Right.
I'm reading it, trying to figure out how we can clean it up to be.
Well, I don't understand how we can trust the child to look after younger children, but we can't trust them to be present on a virtual program.
Does this
Without
relate somehow
adults.
to the rules about online access?
We don't have, so right now, we don't actually have anything that says, you need to be a certain age to access the computer or anything of that sort,
But
right?
online services require, generally speaking, almost all of them under law, both in Canada and the United
Yes.
States, that you have to be 13 years of age or over to participate in online programming without consent.
So,
Or with
yes, so
consent,
the intent is that the parent basically is aware that you are
Yeah,
logged in.
yeah.
Okay, so the principle might be that the parent or guardian has given permission
Yes,
virtually for the person to attend, and they're actually there.
yes,
And then in the second scenario, they've given permission for the 12-year, 6-month-old to take their 7-year-old sibling to the library and then come straight home again. So in either case, the parent's given permission. It's just one, they're still physically there,
yes,
and the other, they're not.
okay. I'm sorry, I do understand what you're saying. I'm trying to figure out how to best clean up the language to be very
So
clear.
is it that we perceive the risk is greater for a virtual program than it is for an in-person library visit?
The concern for virtual programs has primarily to do with the fact that the parent should know that you're registered and that you as a child should be there and should have the camera on. So that's the intent of having the camera on.
Okay. All right, that's fine. And then lastly, we can move on, sorry. Children 10 and younger, however we define that ultimately, may not be left alone in the library. So is that in visual line of sight? Is that within a certain radius, or is it simply in the facility?
In the
so
facility.
Again, I give the example of
Yes, in the facility.
A child's in the child's area,
Yeah.
adults browsing the
Yeah.
DVDs or the books or whatever. They're aware of each other's presence. Obviously, if there's an issue, the child's like, "Hey, where's my parent?"
Right.
Connect them. But are we setting the expectation that if someone observes that the child is physically not next to their
To the parent.
Person in charge, that there's going to be an intervention?
Yeah, no,
If
there
there's no- if
isn't.
there's no
So
other
that's
reason
not
to.
the intent.
Okay, so how do we clarify that like there's, I hesitate to call it the judgment aspect, but basically, I mean, clarify what supervision actually means.
In the library, meaning not next to the parent.
Yeah, like further, for perspective, further down, there's a definition. Unattended child refers to a child left without visible supervision. Does that mean line of sight visibility, or does that mean a library employee can perceive, that parent or adult is associated with that child?
So I agree that it's a bit unclear. The way the duty to report works in terms of the unattended child is that if a staff member feels that the child is not supervised properly or would possibly be in an unsafe situation.
Yeah, I think duty to report specifically refers to children in need of protection. I don't think it's necessarily like a child who is maybe momentarily separated from their caregiver.
No, momentarily is fine. Like if it's in the library, you're going to find a parent, right?
Right.
But sometimes people, what they do is they come in and they leave the child in the library and they go into the rec center and they go and use the facilities in the rec center, and then we go looking for the parents. So that's unacceptable. But if the child is in the children's area playing on a computer and the parent is browsing for some books, keeping an eye on it, depending on the age, that is perfectly acceptable.
Okay. So yeah, I appreciate that context, and thank you for listening to the concerns. Is it reasonable that when you present this to staff, you'll have specific examples, probably based on things that have happened?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is just the policy, right? So, and again, staff deal with this on an ongoing basis. Not so much these days, obviously, but they do. We have some branches in particular where it is a common issue. And that's why we worked with our recreation and culture colleagues, because they encounter exactly the same issues as we do. So that is the intent. Yeah, she knows. That is exactly the reason. While, this is the policy, but the actual procedure of how to go about it, they're already doing it. That's what I said. We have some procedures in place. They were just out of date. But definitely we will update the procedures and ensure the staff receive the appropriate training. And that always comes with examples about how they identify and how do they go about dealing with it. Because often you find a parent and then you have a conversation about what is acceptable. And then you can refer back to the policy.
Okay, I appreciate all of that. And just one final thought for additional context. It's obviously it's great to encourage children to explore their own boundaries and to push further afield, and the library is a wonderful place to do that. So I feel it's important to find that balance of where we're letting them explore and also ensuring that they're safe. So I appreciate the attention you're paying to this. Thank you.
Problem.
Anything further? Janet?
I thought Andrew did great. My only additional comment and suggestion would be, when you talk about children in the library, on a virtual program, they're actually not in the library.
Right.
And so it may make it easier for you to break that into two sections, in-person programming and virtual programming, and then you can draw the distinctions. And then the only other that I wasn't sure if it was 100% clear was, so if I am 12, I'm still not getting the camera thing, because I'm not 13 yet, so I have to have the camera on for security reasons, so who is on the screen. Is that correct?
So that's in line with what the school board does. And really, that is to make sure that if you have, let's say, 15 people signed in for the virtual program, you make sure there's actually a child there and not some adult that shouldn't be there with no child.
But it's not direct supervision, as Andrew pointed out, right? It is, somebody could be doing something else in wherever they reside, and they just need to know that they are on, they're on the program.
Right.
Okay.
So we'll revise that to speak to, given permission or something along those lines. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying all that.
Anything further? Bill?
Yeah, it was interesting reading about this, and it's not that I hadn't really thought about it before, but how often is this kind of an issue? Like, has there ever been a time where there's a kid at the end of the day and nobody's collected them?
You mean in a physical setting, you mean? In
the library, an unattended child is still unattended at the end of the day. Does that happen?
It does happen, unfortunately. Susan is shaking her head. Yes, we have that happen. And it's not only here in Oakville. I've had that everywhere I worked in the past. The most common ones are when you close at the end of the day and there's nobody to pick up the child. Sometimes when you open very early, I've worked in facilities that open really, really early, and the child is there to attend camp sometimes, and the camp doesn't start till later. We've seen that as well. So yes, it does happen. Does it happen on a weekly basis? No, I don't think so. The most common thing that happens is that during the course of a day, you all of a sudden have a child who appears to have been there for a very long time alone, or is somehow looks like he's looking for the parents, and you go looking for the parents and you find the parents, like I said, often in the rec center somewhere.
Yeah, right, okay. All right, thank you.
I can back this all up because in the movie theater business, especially during the summer, they often treat our facility like a daycare center. So that some parents will drop their child off at 11:30 in the morning and pick them up at 7 o'clock at night. And we watch out for that, but it happens more often than you might think. People are looking for cheap alternatives for babysitting. A babysitter doesn't show up or something, and it's important to have procedures to deal with that. I just want to comment on the age thing. Andrew, I hear what you're saying, but I think it's a commonly accepted principle that when you say they're 10, it's basically from the moment they turn 10 to the moment they turn 11. They don't normally saw off. That's the only time you see saw offs is in school, where they judge were you 10 on January 1st or on, before then. So I think that it's commonly, I know that, and Susan, maybe you can comment on this in recreation programs. How did you determine age?
We used, it was the date of, so, and if it was any different, then that was specified.
Yeah, so if they were
But it was
10,
the date. Or sometimes in the summer camp, we used the school year.
yeah,
So that they went to school, if they went to school with them, but their birthday was October, they still got to be in the program with them, so it was by the end of that year. But that's very specific for a program.
Yeah.
The generalized would be the other way.
yeah, so if the program said 10, it would be 10 the entire time they were 10, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty standard. It's a pretty accepted principle, I think, in most organizations that judge age. I know certainly, again, using the movie theater instance, we get lots of people who try that, whether they're over 14 to get into 14A movies or under 13 to get into, to pay child admission. So we use the same principle. Whatever age you are on the day that you are, and age meaning whole numbers, not months, on the day you attend, that's sort of the way it is. So I'm not sure if that's sufficient or whether you're looking for additional clarification, but that's kind of the way I've experienced it, dealing with kids, particularly in recreation settings, almost my entire life. I do have a question over and above that. What is the policy around expelling a misbehaving child that is 11 plus? So between that age, between 11 and 18, when they're unsupervised, what is the policy around sending a child off and the danger and the risks beyond that? You don't do it?
I've never seen that done.
Okay.
We would never kick out a child. We would eventually once we get a hold of the parent or the guardian.
Yeah.
But those are the situations that technically is considered an unattended child, because one of the things that says here is that a child is alone and is not following library behavior expectations after reasonable reminders, right? So, if you ask them nicely, once or twice, and clearly they're not getting it, then you do need to speak to the adult. The adult is not there, then you have a conversation with them about, who dropped you off, how what's their phone number, I think you need to call mom or dad, and then have a conversation with the parent. We would never kick out a child out on the street.
Okay.
I've never seen that done.
I just want to make sure, and I'm curious, does this put us in the position, when we put in policy that you can be 11 to 17, or essentially 11 to 17 on your own in the library, does that put us in a position of being a local parentis in terms of responsibility for the child? Do you know?
So again, this is not new. We're just putting it in.
No, I understand.
The idea is that the parent still is responsible for the child, right? And just because they're not there doesn't mean that we are responsible for the child.
Well, it does in school settings, so that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, no, so you wouldn't be. So,
Okay.
for example, in a recreation setting, when the parent brings the child in, they sign in the child, right? And then the camp people or whatever, they take over. In this situation, the child is using the library,
Right.
but they're not, and that's why it talks about the purpose of the policy to set out the expectations of the responsibility of both staff and the parents.
Right.
So we are not responsible, I think it says right at the beginning that we are not responsible for the children, and I think it also says, let me just find it here. Yes, so it clarifies the responsibility of both OPLs and as well as the parents. And it says the library staff are trained to assist children but cannot assume responsibility for the safety and well-being of children left unattended in the library.
Okay. Have you ever vetted that with a lawyer?
We have not, no. We have so this whole thing was reviewed by Children's Aid.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that's comfortable. I mean, I literally grew up in a library, and I spent a lot of time by myself in a library from a very young age, and I remember some very strict librarians behaving like my mother. So I was just curious, I was curious if we put the policy in writing, does that give us an obligation to act as local parent or local parentis, which I think is the legal term under, that's applied in schools?
I would hope that this is very clear that we're not.
Okay. And how would, is this posted somewhere for parents to be able to, it's all just on the website, I assume?
Well, right now we don't have it. It
Okay.
needs to be
Is your
approved.
intention to post it just on the website, or will you have it up somewhere in the building as well that
So
you can?
the way
point
it's
to?
generally used is that you have it on the website,
Yeah.
and then staff are trained. So I'm just kind of telling you best practices. The way it's generally supposed to be used is that if you end up having a conversation with a parent about acceptable behavior, because whatever happened wasn't acceptable, you do hand them a copy of the policy.
Okay.
It's not general practice to put it up on the wall. It's a
No, I
bit-
was just curious, what the
Yeah.
process was.
That's
That makes
what's-
sense.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you'd essentially, you would coach them at that point.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Andrew, did your line of questioning request a change, or are you satisfied with the way it is and the explanations you've had? I'm not clear. You asked some questions, you were asking for some clarifications, but there was no action attached to your discussion. So I'm just curious, are you looking for refinements, or are you satisfied that this is sufficient to approve as it's presented?
Well, I was seeking clarification, but I mean, it occurs to me that, anyone reading the policy, for example, a caregiver might require clarification as well. So,
Yeah.
for example, 10 years of age and younger includes up to 10 years and 364 days old, right? So
Yeah.
should we rephrase that? It's more of a, do you want to just go through it another time and see if we can maybe clarify some of those definitions?
Yep. So that's how I understood it, that we needed to clean up the language in a couple of places. In fact, the first part, I would probably say children younger than 10 years old, than 10 years, just to be
Right.
clear. So we can clean that up a little bit. I will make the change about in-person versus virtual for the children in the library section. That was a very good suggestion. We'll address the piece about permission as opposed to being present with the child during a virtual program as well. And then I think in the definition section where it says an unattended child refers to a child left without visible supervision, I could probably expand that a little bit so that it's clear what visible supervision means, a bit more clear.
I'm good with that.
So I think we'll bring it back next time with those suggestions, because anyways, we have to bring it back for approval.
Okay,
And
fair
hopefully it
enough.
should be good.
Fair enough. I just wanted to make sure I had my direction straight here. So, Andrew, would you mind moving it, moving the receipt of this proposal? I guess that's the action on this item.
I do
right?
not
Receipt?
mind. So moved.
We received information and comments. So you're moving receipt and the staff direction as detailed in the board meeting. Okay?
Right.
Okay. Is there a seconder to that? That's Bill. Thank you. Last chance for comments or questions? Any objections to the approval as we've stipulated? That is approved. Okay, moving on to another policy item, and that's Customer Code of Conduct Policy, which you'll find is, what item is that? For the sake of those following along at home, that is, it is what it is. Let's move on. I've lost my.
It
6.3.
is 6.3.
I don't know how to deal with paper anymore. It's not digital, so I'm having a problem.
So for this particular policy, you would have received an email late this afternoon. There was no actual change made. I have not made any changes to it. The only thing that the email will show you the document with the actual track changes. So at a previous board meeting, a very good comment was made about the fact that when a policy is brought forward with changes and the changes are not significant, it would be very helpful for you to be able to quickly see what those changes are, so that you quickly realize, if it's a good idea to make those changes or not, or what has been changed. So considering the fact that for this particular policy, the changes are minimal, we thought it would be a good opportunity to bring forward the policy with the track changes. Unfortunately, the way the document uploaded in your board package the first time around was only showing a couple of items crossed off, but you couldn't really see anything that was added, and you couldn't really see any of the comments. So what you received this afternoon was the actual Microsoft Word document showing the track changes. So I just want to confirm that everybody got that. Mm-hmm. Perfect. It will just make it much easier, I think. Sure. So this policy has been in place since November of 2017. It was obviously due for review. In order to figure out what needed to be changed, we looked at similar policies in other public libraries, as we usually do. We asked our leadership team for any feedback they might have, because this is the policy they would have to deal with on a regular basis. And then we made a couple of changes, primarily to update the language, to make sure that we are in line with what's happening now versus what was 3 years ago. The town of Oakville has also updated their policy that relates to this. So we took a piece from there in order to align us closer, and it made sense. So I'm not sure if you wanted me, I can go through all of the changes, or if you can easily see them in the document attached, you can just ask questions, whatever works easier.
What is your wish, members of the board? Does anybody want to go through the changes, or how do you wish to proceed? I'm not seeing any. Are you satisfied to accept the recommendation, which is received for information and comment? Okay, Pankaj, I see you nodding. You want to move that? That's been moved. Seconded? Seconder, thank you. Susan? Further comments or questions? Any objections to
I just have a question. Would this be something that's posted in the library?
So back in the day, all libraries used to post a customer code of conduct, whatever it was called. And it was often with rules such as do not run, do not skateboard, wear a shirt and shoes, and so on. And so with time, we have changed, and now it's written in a different way. It's more about what we are going to do and what is expected. And most libraries now don't post it anymore in the library. Some do. We have not posted ours. So the updated one that was done in 2017, so this one that we're reviewing today, we have not posted.
Okay. Just a corollary question to that. I'm coming back to Susan for her expertise. In the operation of our recreation centers, do we post code of conduct? Do you know?
We did in areas like the fitness center. For the rest of the building, not necessarily. It might be specific ones. For example, at QE, we would have behaviors for the specialty cultural spaces. But overall, general for a facility, which I would equate the library to that general facility. Right. Usually not.
Okay.
Not necessarily. Now, I could be wrong. Colleen can update me. It's been a bit since I've been there, but we didn't.
Okay. Oh, Colleen is here.
Yeah, I've just been quiet in the background. No, we don't. Susan's quite correct.
Well, that's good to know.
And once again, in this situation, if we have a situation where somebody's banned or send a warning letter, or we need to have a conversation with somebody about their behavior, we could always print it. In fact, we do add it to all banned letters and warning letters. But yeah, we have in the past printed it or mailed it to people.
You okay with that, Bill? Okay. Janet?
I'm not sure if I've seen it in a while, but is the Rzone information still up in the library?
So I can provide some. update about that. The Rzone is actually about two customers. So it's not about staff and customers, it's about two customers. There was a lot of confusion for many years since I started about the applicability of the Rzone in the library. So we refer to it here. So we basically say, let me just find the exact phrase that we use. It is applied, so this policy is applied in conjunction with the Town of Oakville customer conduct policy as well as the Rzone. The Rzone used to be posted in the library. In some places it might still be posted. It might not be any longer. But what I'm trying to say is that this policy would be applied in conjunction with the Rzone because generally speaking, the Rzone refers to two individuals, not staff, to customers in the library. So it's almost like this comes first, and then that. And in our situation, like 99% of the cases is this. I think the other one was really built for recreation, and Susan can probably speak to that in terms of different groups outside when staff weren't present, like soccer, whatever was happening there.
I think a lot of it was the arenas.
There you go.
Did I hear you say that only applies, between two customers?
So the Rzone is meant to apply not between staff and customers, but between customers
Oh, I
or
thought it
customer
applied to
groups.
staff as well. So if a customer is abusing a staff, our zone can't be applied.
That is the customer service standards and customer conduct policy that the town has.
Okay.
And they
'Cause
refer to the Rzone.
I thought we used our zone policies to deal with circumstances like that, so we did it erroneously?
I honestly think it was, yeah.
Interesting, okay. Janet?
Yeah, I just like to follow that train of thought because we have another board that some of the members are not being well behaved, and we were directed that the R zone could be would be what we should potentially implement for trying to put some guidelines in place around how you interact with our staff. So I don't know, maybe it's an offline question because I'm clearly confused. And maybe Colleen can answer it.
I
for
think
us.
so. I think she might help.
The R-Zone has been in place for a long time, and that was developed for a recreation and culture environment. Specifically, it was to deal a lot with poor behavior in hockey arenas, to be quite honest. However, more recently, the town reviewed the policies and have separated out some of the different elements. So there's a suite of policies now. So what I would propose, Janet, is that we send you the suite and you can take a look at it and then determine which one best fits your situation.
Okay, so I appreciate that. I'm sorry that wasn't a library board, so I took library board time, sorry.
No, that's totally okay.
Okay, my other question is related to this policy, and that is, so do you feel the policy speaks enough to the sensitivity around culture and ethnicity and how and an awareness around treating people that there isn't a one size fits all at times? It's just an open question. As I read it, I went, it's one of the, have we covered it enough?
So my opinion was that we do, like this goes hand in hand with our inclusion policy as well, which is new, as you know. You're right, it probably doesn't speak very clearly to it. I didn't necessarily think anything else was needed, but we're welcoming feedback at this point. So any other suggestion for change, that's for sure.
If I could make a suggestion, the town has an internal inclusion and diversity committee, and we roll a lot of draft policies and procedures through that group, and that they provide great insights. So that's something that could easily be done, and I know they'd be pleased to support the OPL in any way.
Okay.
So Colleen, are you suggesting that we have a member who sits on that committee for OPL? Are you suggesting that that individual takes the this for feedback to the group and then just brings it back to us? Yeah, we can easily do that. That's easy enough to do.
Easy peasy. Great. Thank you. Janet, are you okay with that then?
Oh, I think that's great. Thanks very much, Commissioner.
So we have a motion to approve the recommendation, and of course, like the last one, including staff direction on our comments. I'll call for objections to that motion, and that is carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 6.4, which is COVID-19 Recognition Day. That's a day when we're recognizing our employees, not celebrating COVID-19, obviously.
No, exactly. And I think the mayor recognized it the other day with the flags half-mast.
That's true, yes.
Yeah, so this comes, it's prompted by an initiative that was started by the town of Oakville, who announced a COVID Recognition Day for their full-time staff last year. Hearing about that, we definitely agreed that staff have worked tremendously hard over the past year and have given up more time than I think we're aware of over the past year. And so we wanted to kind of build on the initiative of the town and duplicate it at the library. The significant difference is that the town offered it for full-time staff. The library functions very differently than the town, and that part-time staff play a key role, particularly when interacting with the public. And when we've reopened, they really took the blunt of those actions. And so we really feel it's important to recognize the part-time staff and the role that they've played. There is a cost to that. At the very highest cost, it would be $31,000. That would be if the part-time staff took a full day and we backfilled them, which is not likely for 100% of them. So that would be the highest cost. We did talk with Belinda and Finance about it, and it is feasible. Particularly doing it this early in the year will allow us to plan for it and budget it accordingly.
Okay. Comments or questions? Andrew?
Thank you, Tara. It's a wonderful idea. Does that come out of the personnel services and benefits underspend?
Yes.
Okay. I'm in favor of it. Thank you.
Anything further? So I have it's kind of a related question, but because it's about COVID. I've been reading and hearing about organizations and companies, large ones too, that are providing for a paid time off, not full days, but for hours to be able to get their vaccinations as a way to encourage people to become vaccinated and also to accommodate the scheduling as it rolls out. Is that something that that you could take back and consider as a policy if the board is interested in looking at that as well?
No, absolutely. I know it's come up as part of the conversation at the emergency meeting that Colleen runs and that we attend 5 days a week. So we're always really up to date. It has been a discussion, and maybe Colleen can speak to it a little bit, but it is definitely something
perhaps I
we're
should
talking
have
about.
actually asked Colleen about it, but that'd be great. Colleen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So EMT at the town has contemplated how to encourage staff to get vaccinated. So what we are looking at doing is providing staff, very similar to elections, where you provide them with 3 consecutive hours off. And so what we're working through right now is the whole policy piece around that and the logistics. And so we will be following up. So once that's finalized, HR is working on that right now. I would be pleased to share that with the OPL team.
That'd be great. Canada Goose was the latest one I heard about, and they were doing 4 hours, but I mean, 3 hours I think is adequate in a community our size. So I think that's a terrific initiative, because we need to do whatever we can to make vaccination easy, and that would be one way to do it. Just like voting.
Yep, no, absolutely. And we tend to take the lead from the town on these.
That's great, thank you. Anything further on the Recognition Day? Can I get a mover? Susan, thank you. Anybody else? Seconder? Thank you. Andrew? Further comments or questions? Objections to the motion? That's carried. Thank you very much. 6.5, staff engagement strategy, March 25, 2021.
Yes, I do actually have a PowerPoint for this one. So the board will remember that as part of my 2021 CEO goals, they identified that originally when I brought it, it was lacking a staff engagement piece. And when I came back for approval in February, it included an employee engagement strategy. And I said I would bring that strategy forward, and that's what this is today. So I'm just, sorry. So basically, I'm going to go over where we kind of stand with our employees. So the board will remember that back in 2019, we held some staff engagement sessions. We hired a consultant to come in and run focus groups. The engagement level at that time was measured at a 7.7 for unionized staff and a 7.2 out of 10 for non-union staff. There was 34 participants, ranging across all departments, all areas, and all different tenures within the library. So we had somebody who just started, as well as somebody who'd been with the organization for 20 plus years. Overall, the engagement is quite good. We're definitely looking to build on that through the initiatives that we put in place in 2020 and this strategy to get us above 8. The key themes that came out of there were better communication, better recognition and respect, and participation in decision-making, and you will see those themes echoed in the strategy. Also, we've mentioned that we do run exit interviews. So these are just some results. We had 35 exit interviews as part of this survey, but it does tell you that overall, I think we're doing quite well. It does highlight areas for improvement, particularly around recognition and communication, which we've identified and definitely speaks to what we heard coming out of the focus groups. And just to be clear, because this is one of the things I learned as I started to study employee engagement, is if you look up a definition of employee engagement, there are all kinds of them. And when we first started to have conversations, it really was their impression that employee engagement meant employee happiness. And that's not exactly true. So for the sake of the strategy, how we're defining staff engagement is employee engagement is a workplace approach resulting in the right conditions of all members of an organization to give the best each day, committed to their organization's goals and values, motivated to contribute to organizational success with enhanced sense of their own well-being. So how do we create an environment where people are excited to come to work and excited to have an impact within their community? So identified in the strategy report, we've identified 4 key areas of focus: employee development, which is basically from the day they start to the day they leave us for whatever reason, that we provide them with the training and support and guidance required to make them successful. Recognition that while they're with us, that we make the effort to recognize their successes, whether that's major successes or every day. Communication, how can we better communicate? And there's a bunch of different ways that we're looking to do that, as well as goal alignment, because this is really plays in part to participating in some level of decision making, but also understanding how every single role in the library contributes to the impact we have on the community. So whether you're, a library assistant shelving books, whether you're a marketing assistant, whether or not you're a customer information specialist, understanding how important what you do every day is to making the library successful and therefore making our community successful. So I'm not necessarily going to go through all of these because they were in the report, but just highlighting that we have roughly 2 to 3 goals for every goal that we've identified as part of that. The majority of them taking part in 2021, although some of them will continue into 2022. You'll see that number 3 in employee development. By the end of the year, develop and implement onboarding and training plans for the customer service technician and the customer information specialist. Those are 2 of our main job buckets, so to speak. The majority of our part-time staff or our branch staff fall into those. The library assistants would be the other. And then we would actually go to move to, as I said, the library assistant and then some of those other positions. So that is a longer term, but it is the goal to get it done for those 2 key positions this year. Continue to build on the Gusto, which we've launched and we've seen some pretty good traction with. So how do we continue to build on that? How can we continue to engage staff in their own recognition? When we hopefully will do a staff development day, which we're targeting for October, although what form that will take is still anybody's guess, but really form a staff committee in order to help us build that day, as well as how we do staff awards and the long service awards. And then communication, how can we build communications through all levels of the organization? So one thing that's become really clear throughout COVID-19 is I communicate a lot more. They get weekly emails from me, as well as more contact with the executive team. So how can we continue that post-COVID, because that wasn't necessarily happening to the same frequency. I did have my CEO Corner videos, but I think that finding a combination of those two moving forward and really making sure that I'm tying their everyday work to the strategic initiatives that are happening is important, but also ensuring that the leaders, the direct supervisors are ensuring that, we're not just sending them emails, that we're highlighting through weekly huddles and individual meetings that information is being shared, and we are creating a feedback loop, which I think is important. Goal alignment. So this year we also tied every individual in the library has 2 goals that are tied directly to my CEO goals, and then reporting to them on how they help us achieve my CEO goals, which are essentially organizational goals. And then again, I think one of the key goals I'm hoping to get out of the strategic plan is as we build the operational plan that goes along with that, is do a much better job of connecting all the different layers of staff to that, and being able to understand how we can report on that and how they can see how their everyday actions are driving that forward. So these are some of the supports we're looking to put in place. I mentioned that last year we ran a book club for our leaders using Creating Magic. Building on that, right now we're actually doing the book Crucial Conversations. We also brought in a full module training program to assist with that, to really drive those learnings home. I'm expecting the whole team to be done that in April, and then we have a leadership team meeting at the end of April where we'll talk about how we are going to set expectations about how that will be used on a regular basis. We also have unconscious bias training, managing in a unionized environment, training that we're looking to update for some of the leaders, because I do think that that's something that needs to be revisited frequently. We're looking to create templates for one-to-one meetings so that we do have some consistency across the board, across leadership. Questions for check-in. So really, again, how do we build some of that feedback loop that comes in? So what is happening in the branch that, when leaders have their one-on-ones, that they can feed that up and that we can start to see trends across branches. I'm really looking to move this organization from reactive to proactive, and that's a way that I'm hoping will help with that. We're also looking to revise our yearly performance tool. I think it's a little bit vague. We need to be clearer in terms of expectations. That way people know exactly what they're striving towards. So a lot of the goals that we had identified are really hard to measure. So what we did is we actually said, okay, if we are successful with those goals, these are some of the measurements that we'll see start to move, and that will be our indicator of success. So we've pulled in overall employee engagement score. So that's the one we ran the focus group. So maybe running these every 2 years. We also have our exit interviews. So, okay, as people leave us, how do we get that back up for that? They're mostly leaving for opportunity, not necessarily, what do they say that you always leave a boss? Part of that. The pulse surveys, which the town is moving on. We had one back last year. We have another one coming out, I think, in April. So that looks to be a standard process that the town's looking to put in place. So we'll join with them. And then our turnover rate, because again, keeping people long-term or seeing that low turnover rate speaks to how well we're doing with that. However, these are outcomes that we currently have in place. We're also looking to establish baselines to help measure this as well. So organizations, the number of meetings with employees, we don't necessarily want to make this overly burdensome, but at the same time, I want to know what's happening in the branches and how often people are meeting as a bare minimum. Recognition, so we did put the Gusto system in place. So how can we kind of measure, like, how is that happening? Development and training opportunities, how are we ensuring that from year to year, is one a really big year and then we go down? Like, how are we ensuring that training and development is consistent and is open to the majority of staff? And I don't necessarily like the title customer satisfaction survey. I don't think it's quite what we're looking to do, but it's the best I have at the moment. But when we have happy staff, we have happy customers, right? And that's a direct indicator. And I know we have the citizen survey, and the library scores really well on that all the time, but it doesn't tell us why. So we're really looking to build on that residents feel very warmly towards the library, but why? What are we doing well? Where could we improve? If they would rate us a 7, how can we get to 8? How can we get to 9? And so that will also help assist and see how we're doing with staff engagement, because I do honestly believe that, when people come to the library, they interact with staff. Staff is our face, it's our heart. And so if they're happy and they're engaged, that's gonna definitely flow through. So that's the strategy very quickly. Happy to take any questions or comments about it.
Members of the board, Bill.
So these regular coaching conversations, how often do those occur? Is that an annual thing, a quarterly thing?
It honestly depends on the employee and their tenure, right? So if we have a new employee, those coaching conversations should be happening relatively regularly. As I would expect that, as they learn their different duties, they might have to touch base, need a little check-in. Whereas somebody who's more established, that may just be a monthly kind of touch base and be like, hey, how's everything going? Have you noticed anything I need to be aware of? We do encourage our leadership team to be present and to check in with staff every day, but just brief little check-ins, whereas the coaching sessions are really, I think, at this point, happening roughly monthly.
Thank you, Bill. Anything further? Andrew.
This is great, Tara. Thank you very much. I appreciate all the effort you put into it. It's awesome. When it comes to engagement, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head, right? People, they want to know what's going on. They want to know how they fit into the big picture. So these are all crucial. Just to drill down a little bit, like under communication specifically says you want staff to have the information they need to feel connected to all levels of the organization. And then you go on to talk about weekly huddles. I'm just curious in terms of, the fact that we have so many different shifts, right? The staff are working and part-timers and so on. How do you make sure that doesn't become stratified where some people just by nature of how frequently that they're getting more information than other people?
Yeah, so that's something we'll work on with the leaders in order to try and understand how scheduling works. The majority of shifts, they tend to come in we tend to have standard shifts. So being able to look at it and be like, okay, you have your pre-open huddle, but also making note of, okay, the next shift starts at 4, covers the supper break, and then stays until closing, having that before potentially the leader leaves in the evening. Our leaders also do work evenings and weekends, understanding that, there are staff that only work evenings and weekends, and how do we catch that? So we're looking to do a better job of just truly understanding how often those interactions are happening, to make sure that it's happening at a bare minimum.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Janet?
Tara, terrific job, and thank you very much for all the detail. I have a couple questions just around a bit of a reality check. This is very aspirational. It is, and being aspirational is great. But it also can make you feel disheartened if you don't hit it all. And a couple that I'd call out for you, just as some feedback, is quarterly discussions. The number of times as a consultant I've been asked to revise or ramp up or look at somebody's coaching and performance models, and they get all excited about quarterly, and it is very difficult to do. Okay. With any level of consistency, and in fact, it sets the employees up for an expectation that you may not be able to achieve. So, just some food for thought: is it better to start with something that you meet with success and you see those results, and build out from there versus overcommit and set unrealistic expectations. The other part that I'd like to comment on is ask is, how did your leaders feel about this in terms of the impact on their role, their responsibilities, and that their alignment with it?
I did present it to them. Sorry. And they didn't really have a ton of feedback, although I will say that we have been building towards this for the past year. So we started having conversations about what a coaching culture looks like and what some of the expectations are beginning of 2020. So a lot of this they are doing. We're just looking to put more structure around it and build in accountabilities.
Well, good for you. And my final comment is, I hope the recognition includes some level of recognition of the initiative and empowerment. We should be encouraging them that, we have rules and we have policies and procedures, and yet true great customer service comes from people seeing and experiencing something and using good judgment. And when we celebrate that, we really raise the bar on the quality of engagement people feel, because they made a personal decision to go one step beyond. Those are the moments that really make people want to stick around and should be celebrated.
No, absolutely it will. And in fact, part of the communication piece is we know amazing things are happening. We don't hear about them. And when we talk to the union and some of the staff, they're like, well, we know what each other's doing. I'm like, yes, but I don't. So how do we do a better job of me finding out all the amazing work that's being done? That way I can recognize it.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Janet. Anything further? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to receive the report. Janet, and seconder, please. Bill, thank you. Comments, questions? And any objections? That is carried. Thank you very much. Next up is the strategic plan environmental scan.
So we are continuing to move full steam ahead with the strategic plan development. What you have before you is the environmental scan or environmental assessment. I did realize that we seem to have used that term interchangeably, so forgive me. With that, the board received what was the executive summary for that. We did get an email from Stephen a bit earlier when he knew he wasn't going to arrive. There is the full document, which I am happy to share. It is close to 80 pages long, but does provide a significantly more detail for each one of those sections, but I did want to provide the board with the executive summary. The environmental assessment is really a look at the broad landscape of what is happening regionally, nationally, internationally, and looking for key trends that kind of correspond to all of those and all the different sectors, so that we can kind of look at and see, okay, what are the key trends that are happening out there in the world, and what are their potential impacts that they could have on OPL, and what do we need to take into account as we do our strategic planning, because what may impact us in the next 9 months may not be what impacts us 3 years from now into the strategic plan. I'm happy to take questions about that, but before we do, I don't want to forget, we also went out to RFP for community engagement. That RFP closed last week. We had our consensus meeting on Monday. We do have a winning proponent that purchasing is currently in negotiations with. So I can't tell you who, because nothing is signed yet, but we are hoping to get that done in the next couple days, and then have our kickoff meeting as early in April as we can. And then once we get a chance to sit down with them and have a chat and kind of set what the board has told me are their expectations, we'll do a plan, and then we'll provide that to the board for feedback.
Tara, can you just maybe update, and maybe Joe wants to participate in this, just update everybody on the shared initiative as well?
Oh, sure.
I don't see anything on the agenda for that, and I thought that was
I kind of separated it out from the strategic plan, but I'm happy to do that.
Were you going to cover it under CEO update?
Actually, it's not in there, no.
Okay, so
I can put it in there from now on out.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just give us a bit of a high level. And by the way, did you provide them with the environmental assessment?
I did.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
They still only have, I think they only have the executive summary, because we just finalized, we had some issues with some formatting of the full report.
Because this would be incredibly helpful for their
absolutely.
task. Yeah, okay. Yeah, could you provide a report? That'd be great.
Sure. So we've met with them. We meet with them every Tuesday morning. They're still in the ideation phase. So the way it's worked recently for the past 2 weeks is that there's, I don't know, 6 or 7 different groups. So Joe, Simona, and I go, and then we have 15 minutes with different groups. So I may talk to 1 and 5, and then the next week later, I may talk to 2 and 7, and then they get equal time with Joe and Simona. And right now, it's a lot of questions. They're asking us for a lot of stats. Some we collect, and some we actually don't. So that's been an interesting conversation. They're asking a lot about history, which we've had to kind of dig up for them, which has been interesting for us as well. They have some interesting starting thoughts. They're still not well formed. I'm interested to see the coming weeks as the questions start to narrow down. Some of them, we have provided some feedback about legality around privacy. Because some of them, the apps, right, and just how they want to be able to track people. And I'm like, well, yes, but, I'm pretty sure that's privacy might not go so well with that, particularly as a library, where privacy is definitely one of the key pillars that we try and uphold to it. But they definitely have some fun ideas, and the groups seem to be significantly different in their ideas. Would you guys agree with that? Some of them are looking at marketing, some of them are looking at apps, some of them are looking at vehicles. It is. I think it's going to be quite exciting to see what they come up with.
Okay, thank you. I can report that I attended the first meeting and spoke on your behalf, members of the board, and I was thoroughly impressed with the enthusiasm by the professor. He was super keen, and even the questions that came up, even in that very first day, were impressive that they were that engaged. So I think it's going to be a fascinating exercise, and the outcome should be quite interesting.
Yeah, a bunch of them asked if they could have library cards, so I'm expecting a spike in our library cards, so that's a good thing.
Should make it mandatory. Okay, members of the board, any questions about any of this that you've just heard? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to receive the information. Not everybody at once. Thank you, Susan. Susan's the star tonight, by the way. I just want everybody to know that. You're going to have to try to live up to her standard of rapid motions. And now nobody's seconding. I'm sorry to insult you. I've insulted you. Thank you, Bill. Last chance for comments or questions. Any objections to the receipt? Seeing none, that is received. Thank you, everybody. Okay, moving on to 6.7, development update.
So I am going to pass this over to Marcus and Deb. Yeah? Are you going to come up?
I was just going to introduce them.
Okay. I will.
Marcus hiding under
Get
a
out of the
bench or
way.
something?
What?
No,
Marcus
Marcus
is,
wouldn't be
oh, sorry. It's just Deb then. My bad.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. No, I just wanted to introduce the board to Deb Thompson. So she's should be on the meeting right now if you want to. She's our new fund development coordinator. So
Okay.
she's provided a quick update on our fundraising strategy for this year. So I'll let her take the lead on this one, and I'll be around for any questions at the end as well. So.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Deborah.
Nice to meet you all. I think I might have met a couple of you, but not a lot of you in person. So glad to be on our call today. I'm not sure if you're seeing the slides, but the slides are in the PDF board update. If you want to follow along from there.
I think they're coming up. Oop, that one's got to come down.
I don't think so. I didn't have that one. So maybe you guys can just follow along in your board packages. Is that okay? Yeah. Is it up there?
It'd be much nicer if we had it because in case anybody is watching.
I can
No,
share
it's not.
my
It's not any of the
screen.
That's
three.
gotta come
Those are all
down.
mine.
Thank you.
Jessica will get it.
Yeah, let's take a second and get it because I think this would be, this is a good slide deck. So I think it'd be nice for our patrons and staff who are watching to be able to see it.
No, that's my fault. I got so caught up in my 3 PowerPoints.
It's all about you.
Forgot.
There we go.
Okay, can you see it on your screen?
Almost. There we go.
There it is. Oh, here we go. Okay, perfect. Wonderful. All right, and Jessica, are you driving? Do I need to let you know when to change the slide?
I think our IT department's driving, are they not? Or Jessica is?
I can do it, Deb.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. Well, hello, everyone. As has been mentioned, I'm the new Fund Development Coordinator. I very much appreciate the opportunity to provide this update to the board this evening. The report that you received includes 2 items. It includes the PowerPoint, and there's also a Appendix B has a development promotional video. I believe that is a separate attachment in your package. I think I should be able to play it here, but if not, you can play it through the package. I'll let you know when it's time. So I'm happy to answer any questions throughout the presentation or at the very end, whatever's preferred. I joined OPL in December of 2020 in the middle of a pandemic and immediately began working with the team to build out our fundraising strategy. Our report today will address our financial summary, an overview of development's 2020 results, as well as our actions for 2021. And I'll also cover our 2021 accomplishments in Q1, as well as a timeline for 2021. Just want to remind the board that our government funding covers the library's core expenses, operations, admin, infrastructure, and maintenance. However, it's through donations from individuals, corporations, foundations, and associations that the library is able to expand and enhance its core collections, programs, services, and spaces beyond what our operating budget permits. OPL has the basic building blocks of a comprehensive fundraising program, and the focus of development efforts are raising funds for program expansion, enhancement, stewardship, and cultivation of donors and reporting on impact. And you'll note here, the financial summary gives you the actuals. To establish our revenue goals for 2021, we did use both 2019 and 2020 as benchmarks. And our target for 21 was primarily established around activities and focus to generate our donation revenues for the year. It included categories, which I'm going to go over with you this evening, including individual giving from multiple sources, major gifts, corporate giving, and bequests. And additionally, we focused on revenue that comes from community foundations via various funds and grants, as well as Friends of the Library and third-party programs. Next slide, Joe. A majority of our donation revenue at the library comes from individual giving, and it's through multiple sources. So our focus on 2021 will remain on those donors through these stewardship activities. That's going to include our individual outreach, both gratitude and thank you, and stewarding our donors through the library. It's going to include some impact and stewardship reporting, very much in a donor-centric focus to show how their funds were used and how their gifts impacted themselves and the library and our community. And also through 2 multi-channel direct marketing campaigns, one of which is running starting next week, as well as online and in-branch giving when it's safe to do so. Many of our donors experienced barriers using the library spaces and branches this year, of course, as we know during COVID. So we focused our donor outreach and planning on stewardship via phone and online in 2020. We will continue to do that to outreach to our donors, but we will also support them in giving online, through mail, and as I said, in branch when it's safe to do so. Next one, Joe. We just launched a direct marketing campaign, which is hitting mailboxes next week, but it also includes, and I believe, Mr. Chair, you may have a copy of the direct marketing piece in one of your packages. I'm not sure if Tara was able to get you a copy of that. But the copy that's in the slide deck is a slight draft version. We've made a few changes to it. I have a copy of it here as well. The campaign, just going to finish up on this slide, Joe. The campaign includes, as I mentioned, a direct mail, which is going to about 500 current and lapsed donors. We went back as far as 2018 to determine some of our donors who hadn't given to the library in a while to come up with that list. And our campaign also includes focus on the website, Canada Helps, a social media campaign, and then a follow-up donor thank you and impact campaign in the spring. 2021 will also focus very much on online giving. In 2020, we did run a couple of campaigns through Canada Helps, and we plan to do that again in alignment with our direct marketing campaigns in the spring and in the fall. We will also plan on participating in Giving Tuesday this year. You may recall that Giving Tuesday had a Giving Tuesday Now in May and a Giving Tuesday in December last year. I don't believe there's going to be a Giving Tuesday Now this year. So I think the organization that runs Giving Tuesday will focus just in December on that program. And we will be updating our donation forms in Canada Helps to give our donors more information about the library and its focus. And of course, we're going to use the website. The current website will be updated slightly with some additional language. And when the new website is launched, we'll be updating all of our ways to give page, providing some more impact reporting, as well as additional stories and donor gratitude statements on the site. Next. So our major donors in 2020 were primarily the Ma family, who donated a Chinese collection series of books, which we had translated, and they donated some additional funds to have those books cataloged. And then the Spark Circle organization, who does a yearly art sale, actually did their art sale virtually this year in December. And were quite successful at raising funds for the library with their art sale. In 2020, we plan to develop and define our major gifts strategy and plan, specifically with the support of the Major Gifts Committee. And we will also develop a prospecting plan to move our major donor program along and focus on our portfolio for major gifts. Next. Our Major Gift Committee did meet in early 2020, and we did put things on hold until we had a development plan and until I arrived. So I'm here and excited to be involved in the reinstatement of the Major Gift Committee. And the focus will be on building a plan and determining actions and efforts to specifically grow our major gifts portfolio around individual giving through our major donor programs. Okay. And corporate giving. We'll also be focusing on building meaningful relationships with our community businesses to support corporate funding using a practical relationship-based approach and a model that includes a focused corporate prospecting plan. We did receive some corporate gifts through the result of our efforts in 2020. 2021 will be focused on further outreach to some of the corporate donors that we talked to at the beginning of 2020 who put things on hold because of the pandemic. We are in talks with a couple of those donors in establishing a longer-term funding partnership. And we are also building our prospecting plan, including prospect briefs, which is basically just an overview of the concepts and values of the organizations that we're seeking. And we'll also be aligning our prospect to some of the things that OPL needs in terms of program funding and doing that outreach. That formal outreach will start in April. Right now, the outreach is just to the existing organizations that we talked to in early 2020. Also going to be a focus on bequests and legacy giving. In 2019, we did receive a bequest from the Hassan family, and in 2020, we were planning to do a notification and a recognition of the bequest, but unfortunately, the family lives in California, and we're not able to travel to Canada to do that recognition program. So we are in touch with the family, looking to find a way to safely acknowledge their bequest in 2021 through a program. We also, you'll see the $1,000 figure here. That is basically a donor who gave us a bequest through his will, and we actually received a letter in the mail from his daughter, and he left us the $1,000 in his will to spend on our current needs and programs. Our plan for 2021 is to build our legacy giving program. The focus will be on signing up again for the Willpower Program. And if you're not familiar with the program, it's a program through the Canadian Association of Gift Planners, and it works to provide you with marketing expertise and website support to inspire donors to leave a gift for Oakville Public Library, and specifically to help them understand the benefits and the details around how they can leave a gift and how they can manage that process. We do plan on delivering another Make-A-Will session, which was successful for us last year, and the focus would be on estate planning and leaving legacy gifts. The focus is to try and build a solid bequest program roundabout late this year, using these tools of the Willpower and the Make-A-Will session to get a little bit more formalized with how individuals can leave gifts for the library in their will. Bequest planning and legacy giving really is about planning for the library of the future. It's planning for when we may or may not be around to continue the library and have donors leaving gifts for the library in their will. Family foundations, we have two families who have given us gifts through the Oakville Community Foundation. It's managed through them. This is also where our endowment fund is managed. We'll certainly continue stewardship and engagement with these donors, including some impact reporting. One of the Burkett family is a major sponsor of the Seed Library, and the Wood family sponsors our Adult Connect collections. So we will be providing with some reporting back to them around stewardship and how they serve the needs of the library. And of course, as I said, engagement with the OCF. Okay, next. Our work with foundations also includes a granting program. We did receive an emergency community support fund grant, which funded our seniors connection kits, and our current appeal is to extend some of the funding for that so that we can continue to enhance the seniors connection kit program. In 2021, in fact, just a couple of weeks ago, we did submit a grant for the Canada Healthy Communities Grant for our story walks, to make our story walks, which are currently in place at Bronte and Tannery Park, and make them permanent. We just received notification this week. We should hear around about early May as to whether we're awarded that grant. And our plan is also to develop a plan for our grants so that we can investigate other opportunities for community grants that align to Oakville's programs, and relying on grants that are more in alignment with what OPL's programs are about, because a lot of the emergency grants will likely not be provided this year. Okay. Friends of the Library. We had one book sale in February of 2020, and then COVID hit and everything was put on hold. But Marcus and I met recently with the Friends of the Library to reconnect and to brainstorm some ideas on what could be done to move things forward for raising funds, but keeping in mind the COVID protocols and safety. We are exploring virtual book sale ideas, potentially using Canada Helps as a tool to process payments. Friends of the Library has also done some outreach and a check-in with their book sale volunteers to just get a feel for their availability and their ability and desire to potentially volunteer based on their current status. We're also working out how to receive donated books again safely. So, Mr. Chair, that box of books that you have is hoping you can bring it back. And we are also discussing membership fees and how can we manage the membership benefits. You may recall that the membership benefit for previous to COVID was that you got early access to the book sale. So we're looking at what kind of benefits might be interesting to people who would become members. And I will note that no members asked for a refund in 2020. So we were happy to hear that. And
Jessica,
I don't know, Joe, if this will work, if you can play this video or not. This video was created in 2020, and we are going to be posting it on our Canada Help site, as well as our website. Joe, are you able to play it?
Yeah, they're going to play. I can provide some more context too. This video was created pre-COVID. This is the shorter version of it. We do have a 5-minute longer kind of fundraising clip that we put as well. So this is the quick version, but again, I'm hoping, okay, are we good to play? Yeah. But yeah, this was pre-COVID.
When I came here to Oakville in 2007, the conversation circle to make your language better in conversation with people, that helped me.
Being a consultant, I'll do articling, I'll do researching.
We have like so many new things like the printers and like the creation zones at the Oakville Public Library. We try to like evolve and like change ourselves to meet like the demands of the Oakville community.
It's a place where it doesn't matter what your social status is.
It's a second house.
Like a library is a hub. It's a place where everyone can meet.
In my mind, it is one of the most premier organizations in the community.
When you do have an opportunity to help the organization that you are getting from it a lot of things, how can you say no?
So to give a little context, that video will be used with our fundraising campaign in the 2 different forms that Joe mentioned. So we did have a few accomplishments in early 2021, and I won't read them through here, but generally early 2021 was our prep for building on our fundraising plan. So we do have a plan of tactics, we have our campaign plans, and really just building all of the pieces that we need to build on a successful fundraising program in 2021. And our 2021 milestones are listed here. We're really focused on these actions and milestones to get us through from Q2 and onwards. And there are a few ongoing activities that will happen all throughout the year. But these are some of our targets and our guides for 2021 for development. So I'm really excited to be part of this team and happy to answer any of your questions from here.
Thank you very much for that presentation. And that's a very impressive dossier of work. Well done to you and the team. And by the way, Marcus has confirmed he's not hiding under a bed. She just sent me an email. So if those of you who are looking for him, you can stop. We're good.
Yes, he's there.
Questions for Deborah? Janet, thank you.
Oh, she's on mute. You're mute. There we go.
Sorry. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
We look forward to all your contributions. Does your strategy shift at all if you were going to move into what I would call a capital campaign? If we were ever wanted to do a major fundraising, for example, for an amazing Central Ranch library, has that conversation ever occurred, or in your experience, does that change your donor strategy?
It doesn't really change the strategy. It's almost like you would build a strategy within the strategy. So the focus would be on what is our target for raising funds? As a fundraiser, really, it's about what programs and what capital campaigns and things do we need to raise funds for, and then build that strategy for raising those funds for a capital campaign. And it involves all of the things that I've shared here in terms of building a marketing strategy and building a plan and building donor outreach and building donor thank yous and all of those kinds of things. There was when we were doing the strategic plan, if you take a look at Saskatoon Public Library, they did a great job of sharing the capital campaign and the details and the FAQs and showing, because they're in the process of raising funds to build a new library.
That may be in the larger, not in the executive summary, but in the larger version of the strategy document that maybe Tara is sending us. So thank you for suggesting that. I guess my other question is, given that we are in the midst of revisiting the library strategic plan, will we see an evolution of this strategy following sort of a confirmation of what is the strategic plan going forward for the next 5 years or 3 to 4?
Yeah.
I think is what we agreed to.
Jan, I can answer that.
I don't know if you want to answer that, but
Yeah,
very
for
much
sure.
so.
Yes, so what Deb presented today was more or less the 2021 plan. So following the strategic plan, let's hope fall, we'll have that set of information to reset and actually build for 2022 and beyond. So whatever comes out of the strategic plan, we're ready to shift and adapt based on what we hear. But again, this is from all the information we know today, and what we need to fundraise for and the gaps that we have, this covers it for now. But again, you're absolutely right. Once we know what the outcome of the strategic plan, we're 100% willing to adapt this strategy as we progress and move forward.
Thanks very much. And again, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Further questions? Andrew.
Hi, Deborah, welcome. I'll echo Janet's remark there as well, and thank you very much for your comprehensive presentation.
Thank you.
I can't help but notice that when we look at our actuals from 2019 at 126,000 and from 2020 at 47,000, it's quite a serious decline, and then we're looking to more than treble that for 2021. I appreciate there's some individual targets for the various sections, but for example, the individual giving goal has doubled from 2020 to 2021. And I'm just wondering, basically what's behind those increases, and how have we validated that those are realistic targets?
Yeah, Andrew, I can speak to that since I've been around. Essentially, in previous years, we had someone in Deb's position. So Deb came on board for the majority of 2020. We didn't have a fund development coordinator. So a lot of that work, it was union-based, so we were not able to shift responsibilities to cover a lot of the marketing campaigns and cover a lot of the campaigns associated with fundraising. So a lot of the activities that we typically do throughout the year, we didn't have an opportunity to complete in 2020. We also have, every year we have a lot of one-offs. So as you saw in 2019, you had the Hassan family with a $50,000 donation. You had a lot of those one-offs, which we didn't receive any, and we didn't solicit any in 2020. So we're hoping with a lot of the campaigns and the strategies we have, we're going to reach a lot more people in 2021. It's similar to what we've done in years before 2020. And hopefully get back to that number that's around the 120 to 200 marker. That's why we kind of perfectly, what we target at 150 as it kind of sits in the middle from the past. If we look at the larger history of years, it's a fair number to kind of target with all the actions that we have in place.
Okay. It strikes me, especially talking about like a major request such as the Hassan family, so there's quite a lot of hope built into that number, but you're confident it's realistic based on prior years' accomplishments and having a dedicated person, and that's great. I appreciate the thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? So I have a question. Who produced your video for you? It was really well done.
Yeah, it was a company called, it was a company called Intent. They're an agency, yes.
Local company?
Pardon?
Are they local company?
Yeah, Toronto.
Yeah, it was a really well done video.
Yeah.
There's a longer version?
There is. The actual version is about 5 minutes.
Can you send a link to the board?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really paints us in a very, very nice light. I like it a lot.
Yeah, we built it to showcase. I mean, when we have that 5-minute called the elevator pitch with the potential donor, it's that the overarching image of what the library represents. So
Terrific. Any more questions, board, before I look for motion to receive? Okay, motion to receive the report. Janet and Bill, any comments, questions? I have one very quick comment. Once again, I'm just going to reemphasize what I said before. This is a very impressive package. I am super I'm super excited about this. So well done, everybody that's been involved. This is exactly what we need. So I'm super excited to see how it all turns out. And I just can't tell you how long I've been waiting to see something like this. So congratulations, Deborah, Marcus, whether you're under the bench or at home, and the whole team.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll ask if there are any objections to the receipt of this report. See none, this is approved, and let's move on. Thanks, Deborah. Nice to meet you.
All right, nice to meet you. Thank you, Ted. Take care.
6.8, the website update. Joe, you're still up.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. So the website continues. I mean, according to our project plan, it is still on schedule and still, Jeff, under budget. So overarching, I mean, we still have the tentative go live date of June 26th. Now, I emphasize the tentative as there are still major hurdles and deliverables we need to meet to achieve that. But as everything trends and everything continues to go according to our plan and our project schedule, we are set to hit that date of June 26th. Currently, again, the Pixel Shop has done a fantastic job with the development so far. They've already achieved a couple milestones. Right now, the team at OPL and IS is internally testing single sign-on and a few of the major kind of development milestones throughout it. The next big one on their list to complete is federated search. But yeah, it's coming together very well. I'm hoping by the next board meeting, I'll have some amazing visuals of the website to highlight it to everyone. But right now, I open it up to the board for any questions regarding the website.
So you're, according to this Gantt chart, we'll see it on sometime after May 21st.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
You're just like holding this over us, man. I so want to see this thing, but
I can arrange something if you would like to see it sooner than later, Jeff.
I would love to see it sooner than later. I am so excited to see this one done because this has been on our to-do list for so long. Members of the board, any questions for Joe on the website development project? I am not seeing any. Can I get a motion to approve to receive the information? Sue, Sue seconded by Pankage. I saw Pankage. Is there any further comments, questions? Any objection to the receipt? That is approved. Thank you very much. Thanks,
Have a good
Joe.
evening.
CEO update.
Okay. So just a quick COVID-19 update. We remain in red control zone. We've been here for a while, so we're hoping to stay. The board's probably noticed that we are officially in the third wave. So we are continuing to very closely monitor direction from the province. They do continue to make small adjustments in their policies and procedures. So shout out to the legal team and the HR team, both at OPL and the town, for keeping on track of all of these little subtle differences that we have to then add to our processes and procedures. But I think we're doing a great job of staying on top of all of those. I will just mention that a significant number of libraries, including Burlington and Hamilton, have recently moved from 72-hour quarantine of materials until 24. The province does require a quarantine. However, they do leave it up to the individual library to do it. They've done this based on the research that currently exists. Vaughan Public Library actually put together a white paper on all the different research and summarized it, that even though returned items may have the coronavirus on them, it is not a rate that is infectious. And you're not necessarily going to get infected. And that the fact that there's no real scientific proof that highlights a significant number of cases where people have caught it from physical things. It is primarily person to person and airborne. There is an advocacy campaign by other libraries for the Ford government to completely eliminate the requirement for quarantine. We still quarantine for 72 hours. I do feel that in the current third wave and the fact that it's kind of of our current practice, that we will watch what the feedback is for Burlington and Hamilton. Burlington just went on the 23rd, so they've only been there roughly a couple days. So we'll continue to have communication to them to see how that transition went. But just a heads up, you may see this at other locations, but we're still at 72. And when we change to 24, that will be something that the board will be informed of. Questions, concerns about that?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Janet has a question.
So the research that was done, or the information you've received, did it also include the rapid increase in variant?
It did, yes.
Okay, just because it does act very differently, it appears, than what we went through before.
Yeah, they updated their original. I'm happy to circulate it to the board if they're interested in it.
Thank you for the information.
Okay. Next, I'm going to give you an update, including drawings. It's very exciting for what is happening with the exterior space at Glen Abbey. Things are happening relatively quickly. Normally, I probably would have brought this as part of a report, but just based on some of the timing, I wanted to get it in front of you sooner rather than later. The team is working with the consultant on a concept. It is still a high-level concept where we've just kind of given them, our main drivers: flexibility, welcoming space, a feeling of natural, of nature in the space. We will be taking it out for public consultation. It'll go out, it'll be at the branch, it'll go out via our social feeds, and I think we were talking our newsletter for feedback from the community. And of course, I'm bringing it today for feedback from the board as well. But it is at a phase where it is still appropriate to ask for feedback. We didn't want to give too many different concepts because I think it's best when you're provided a direction. And the space doesn't really allow for a lot. It is a rectangle, and it needs to be flexible because we really basically need to go from story time to cocktail hour should we want to have a fundraising event out there one evening, or book club. It just needs to suit different purposes throughout the day.
How about an entrepreneurial suite? That's a joke from before.
I'm like, that would be complicated. So I do have
remember we sent you back with all, I'm not sure if everybody was here when we did that. Oh, Pancake was here too. We sent you back to, anyway. Sorry, I'll keep going.
So for those of you who don't know, the space is on the north-facing side. So you can see it as you walk through the branch to the front entrance. It is straight back. For those of you who were there for the opening, there are a new set of doors there that go out. Right now, it's just a basic concrete slab. There was a fence there. We ended up tearing it down because it was falling down. So you can kind of see it there. So the circles are existing trees, which will stay. And then you will see as it kind of gets to the children's area at the bottom of the screen, it says precast concrete storage shed. That's for storage of any kind of furniture or toys. Because again, it is meant to be a flexible space. So we want to have space or storage close where we can grab things out. So if we're having a story time and we want to go outside and have, bubbles and blocks that's easy to pull out, and then if we're having a book club there in the afternoon, that goes away, and then out comes seating. And they actually did some digital rendering for us. So this is again, just a high-level concept. Obviously, the benches are just there. That probably won't look like that, but there will obviously be seating as part of that. You will notice the overhang and then the slatted overhang. That is their recommendation due to how shade hits. In the summer, it is very unshaded back there, and it is very hot. So this, based on their research of how shade kind of flows, this would provide enough shade to it without having to do necessarily a canopy where we'd have to worry about snow or rain or other kind of pieces. They've had great success with this. And just some other views. So this is the parking lot. Basically, but they're recommending a fence that could then potentially have art pieces to it. And you can see an example of another space where they did that you could do something on it like that. And then a bit of an aerial view, so that the children's area is that higher piece to it, and then the door is actually between that giant evergreen to the right of the giant evergreen piece to that. So that's initially what we're thinking in terms of concepts, keeping it a square, maximizing the use of space to the best of our ability. We're also going to bring up the ground. So for those of you who remember, there's a pretty significant ramp there. So we're actually going to bring the whole thing up so that it's flat, and then the exit, which is somewhere, that's where the ramp will go. So we're not wasting actual space within that space to a ramp, because it's so high right now, it would take up half the space to get an appropriate ramp in there to that piece. But again, the core is, how do we bring nature in, and how do we keep it a flexible space? So happy to.
Questions, comments? I have one. Have you considered setting it up so that it could be used as a performance space as well?
We did talk about, not necessarily a performance space, but we did talk about acoustics and whether we could have like host movies out there and then
Well, I
do
wouldn't
like
agree with that
a
at
children's
all.
performance and have a screen.
I would be against that, I'm just kidding.
But we did talk about acoustics for that. I mean, we would, especially in the summer, for part of our summer reading program, we do bring in performers, that would be a really great space for that. Or if we were going to have like a thank you for our funders, it would be a cocktail potentially with a small quartet.
Well, I'm thinking of a revenue potential too, because if you had we have a shortage of performance spaces in town. I've often advocated that when we do a redesign, that we build a small theater like they have it, for example, London and Windsor libraries have small theaters. Probably other ones do too. But that would be it'd be a cool concept if you were to set it up, get some weatherproof, AV equipment out there and leave it up permanently, and make it available to, poets or, small performances, single person shows, small concerts, that sort of thing, and even, dare I say, movies. I think it'd be, like, again, a great revenue opportunity, but as well, a really cool feature for that community and the library.
Well, even for us in terms of like teen programs, whether we have like a slam poetry night or just some of those, or an open mic night kind of scenario.
Or you could do that garage band concept that I told you about from London Library too, where the library actually helps kids set up their own garage bands. That could be, to keep them out of the library so they don't make noise and disturb the librarians, they could take it outside.
Yeah, we do. One of the things we do have to look at is how does sound carry into the facility, as well as outside the facility, because it is connected to children. So that is something that we've talked about a little bit to make sure that if we do have something go out there, how bad is it, or is the sound for the collaboration room, or in the children's area, does that flow out? So that's something we're still looking at.
What about lighting? Are you going to set it up with some sort of outdoor lighting so that you can illuminate the area in the evenings?
They'll have the lighting further down the concept, so it's coming.
It's coming. They just want to nail down where everything is going to be before they look at lighting. But the idea is that it will be as much of a use as we can. So as it gets into winter, fall, that we'll be able, if the weather allows for it, that people go out there.
Well, this is very cool. My 2 cents are to seriously consider and equip it to be a performance space as a revenue generator as well. So, because you could literally program it out, a couple nights a week kind of thing, I think. But anyhow, one more time, questions, comments? Susan.
Having done some management of multi-use spaces,
Yeah.
your storage is a great idea. And I would further what Jeff was saying about I'm assuming you've looked at it, but we ended up adding speakers and sound systems and electricity and Wi-Fi and everything to spaces after that we found we needed in some spaces we didn't think we were going to. So I just ask that you continue to maybe look at that stuff.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. We've definitely identified Wi-Fi, but have we looked at?
Yeah, we looked at adding power and the projector screen, like a projector
And the speakers? Okay.
Even a bit of a raised platform kind of thing. So if you did have performances, you'd have a bit of a raised platform.
Absolutely, because we ended up getting carts that we moved in and out to move from spaces to spaces that way. But that was something that really we wished we had maybe done previous, and the design sort of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Susan. That was great contribution. Anything further? Andrew.
I just want to echo what Jeff said as well about considering a performance space. And also just to extend the thought, I mean, we've got a destination for families right there with the big children's center. What a great opportunity for children to discover as well in terms of, performing.
Yeah.
If there's a small elevated stage, they can go out, just make stuff up ad hoc. There could be programs, etc.
Yeah.
But beyond the revenue piece, I know that Jeff's concerned about. I think there's a huge opportunity as well, just for community use.
Okay, yep, thank you.
I'm not just about money, just so you know.
No, it looks great. Sorry, what are the materials, by the way? That wasn't clear to me. I'm sorry if you said it.
Materials of what, sorry?
Well, the structure and potentially the stools and so on. Like it was all white. I assume it's not all concrete.
It hasn't been determined yet until they nail down the concept a little bit more. Then we'll start looking at exactly what the recommended thing. The stools, again, that's just their visualization, I think, to give you kind of what the space looks like. It's unlikely that we're going to go with stools. They're just not the most comfortable.
They look terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, irregular concrete stools. I mean, naturally.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
But if you're going to leave, if it's going to be truly flex space, you probably shouldn't have permanent seating so that you can accommodate all sorts of opportunities. Because the more you structure, you make that stuff permanent, the less flexible it is for community use as well as revenue generating opportunities.
Yes.
I'm accommodating both Andrews in my points of view.
You also have to look at storage of that equipment.
Yeah.
Which becomes a big thing.
Yeah.
Like stackable and all that.
Yeah.
Can we use it for these guys and that sort of thing too.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's really cool.
Yeah, we're excited about it.
Yeah.
Continuing on. So the board almost got a report about the Center for Equitable Library Access, but I pulled it on March 16th because we got a statement from Minister Qualtrough. The Center for Equitable Library Access provides support to public libraries to further support library users, customers throughout Canada with print disabilities. That includes people with vision issues, Braille, dyslexia, and a number of other issues. And it came forward as part of the budget, the fall budget, that they were cutting all funding for CELA effective April 1st. And of course, that you may have seen, I think I sent actually some articles out to the board for that, and that was quite a concern. I know I reached out on behalf of the library to our two MPs, and the original report actually was bringing letters forward for the board to endorse and send. However, through that advocacy campaign, which saw a significant number of libraries as well as library customers reach out to their local MPs, we have seen some movement for that. And Minister Qualtrough did release a statement restoring the $1 million funding for April 1st, so that covers 2021 to 2022. However, our understanding is that the cuts still are in place for 2022 forward. CELA is regrouping with their lobby group that they hired. And then we'll be letting us know how they want to proceed with advocacy for 2022. So once we have more information about that, it'll likely be coming to the board about how we can support that and find long-term funding for CELA. CELA is supported both federally and provincially. The federal position is that it is really up to the industry to meet those needs. However, the industry is a good decade off. Books are not coming out fully accessible. A book will come out in print, and then audiobook will come out a little bit later, and then the fully accessible, like Braille copies, come out significantly after that. And in many instances, they don't even bother to produce them. So that's what CELA does, is CELA creates audiobooks, and CELA creates the Braille copies, and then allows libraries throughout the country to borrow that and burn, actually, in our organization to be able to distribute them out to those in need. So we continue to work with the federal government to help them understand that it still is very much needed in Canada. And 1 in 10 Canadians have a visual disability with that. So more information is coming, but this is a significant concern for libraries across the entire country right now. Questions about that? No?
Questions, board? Seeing none?
So just an update, particularly for Central. So Netflix continues to film next door. They'll be back on site on April 8th and April 9th. We have continue to work with the town and the film company to manage the parking lot. And allow for customers to have space, but there will definitely be restricted parking as part of that. We're getting better each time, and right now, in case anybody is by, there is a boiler in the parking lot because they need to heat the water for the water scenes that they'll be filming. So,
Has Jason Momoa come by to check out a book?
People keep watching. He's there somewhere.
If he does, make sure you snap a picture. It'd be good for PR.
Yes. Yeah. So we tried to reach out through his PR people and through the town because it's about a children's book, right? So we thought, anyway, no bites so far. So as I mentioned in my CEO update report in the package, we do have an ongoing partnership with the Oakville and Milton Humane Society to include pet food as part of our food corner, which has been amazingly received. I didn't quite realize how significant the impact has been, but Oakville, the Humane Society commented on the number of pets who are being placed with them because the people can no longer afford to feed them. So now they have an option for that. We currently have a corner at Central and Glen Abbey, and we just launched at Clearview Branch. Although I will say, Janet, I am going to follow up with you because it did start, but then I was asking Marcus some questions today and he did get back to me, and I think they've pulled it temporarily because there's mice. So we're just working with the school board to track that down and resolve that problem with that. But will offer, Glen Abbey and Central have the fridge, but Clearview will just have dry and prepackaged goods. There just isn't space for a fridge there. And then our partnership with Food for Life will continue to expand because I would love to see this at all of our branches, to be completely honest.
Any questions on this? Any thoughts to expanding to White Oaks?
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely likely a next step. We'll have to talk to the school. We did have some concerns with the school and students talking with them about just the food that's up there, just because of the level of food sensitivities that exist and the protections that school takes. That's an elementary school. I think the concerns are less in a high school.
Yeah.
But I think that is likely our next spot.
Okay, because there's a couple assisted housing communities within a very short hop, skip, and a jump. And there are a number of kids attending school that could take advantage of that sort of thing too. I'm aware of a number of food insecurity issues in that area, so it'd be
Definitely
awesome
all
if you could-
areas, so absolutely.
Okay.
And then conservation Halton passes. I do know that I've had some conversations with multiple board members around this. So that is launching. These is what they look like. You'll also notice the QR code in there. We are including a short survey with that to try and get a better sense of how people are using them, their willingness to travel between branches, in order to try and figure out what the appropriate allotment is. We have 70 of them. Right now, Conservation Halton is dictating that 10 have to be at each branch. We're not sure that's the best allocation. So we have a survey in there to help us understand how we might better allocate and just better manage some of that. So we'll keep a monitor for that, but we're excited to get this out. And then the Ontario Park passes should be out in the next week or so.
What's the uptake on the conservation passes?
They literally just went out, so
Okay.
I'm not sure I even have any stats on that yet, but I'll bring them.
I think I see Janet's hands up. Janet?
So thanks, Tara. So in a follow-up to an email I think you sent to Pankaj and I, that will you do a couple of these as fast track eventually?
That is definitely the goal. We're currently, again, we went back to Conservation Halton because they would have to sign off on that. And some of the key concerns that they had is right now they're a reservation-based system as it is. So you may get it, but it may take you, several days to even get a reservation. To get in. So that's part of the conversation. We don't want somebody to pick one up, have 48 hours, and they can't get into any of them during that time frame. So what is that appropriate? So we went, and that's an ongoing conversation, and we're not sure how that, I don't think it's their goal to have that in place long term. So it may be that the current strategy we have in place is in place, and then as we come out of COVID and you don't require an appointment to get into one of those spaces, we may adjust, and then when it's much more of a drop-in model. But again, we'll continue to monitor and ask for feedback and make adjustments.
Thanks very much.
Anything further on this? Nope, move on.
Yeah. Sorry, Jeff.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I did
Thank you.
have my hand up.
Sorry, I didn't see your hand down up there.
That's okay. I just wanted to extend my thanks to Councillor Haslett-Thiel and to Tara for taking such good care of one of our patrons and a fellow pickleball player who was quite determined to get her way on this and very persistent. So I know Councillor Haslett-Thiel went above and beyond, and so did Tara, quite frankly, with trying to deal with this. So thank you very much for that.
Pleasure.
I haven't heard back from her, so I'm assuming that she's okay for now.
That's usually a good sign.
So we're excited about this initiative. It will launch for April-March break. As part of that, it's an ongoing initiative that we have with the Oakville Fire Department. Oakville Fire really tries to get at particular age groups that are most at risk in fires, also to build some of their fire education. So we're working with them. They're reading No Tea for Dragons. Multiple firefighters with different language skill sets are going to read the book in multiple languages, videos, and they'll launch on our YouTube channel in April. So you will start to see media from both OPL as well as Oakville Fire shortly. Oh, and just, I was asked earlier in the year to speak on a two-person panel for Biblioteca on how we can better measure the impact and value of libraries. This took place yesterday morning. We had almost 800 attendees. It was really good. When Christian Larsson is from Sweden, and they just did a national survey on the value of libraries, looking at, how do people feel emotionally about libraries, and to try and measure value. And I think it was really interesting. It's just being translated into English. But basically, it's a structure that he's hoping that other libraries across the world will be able to look at and then adapt to them. So we're definitely going to look at that, because measuring value is really challenging. And I know it was a big topic as part of the board when we were talking about pre-strategic planning. How do you measure helping somebody achieve their full potential, right? Like how do you measure that? It's a real challenge, and libraries really struggle with it, because circulation statistics, somebody can borrow a book, they can read it, they can not read it, it can change their life, or it could not. So how do you measure the impact other than a checkbox of a circulation? So these are some of the questions that came out of that. My view, the way I presented, was much more of this is what we keep trying, and this is what we keep learning, and this is what we're doing next. Because I definitely think we're on an engagement and measurement journey, and it's not an easy answer. Anyway, it was a really fun panel to be on, and my understanding is that a lot of the attendees have reached out wanting round two. So I don't know if that'll be me or whether it's better to bring in some new, but it was definitely fun to do. And the board was mentioned significantly because of your passion for metrics and also community engagement. And it was a good view of bringing what the board expects, and some of the questions tied to the marketing study that we did a number of years ago, what we learned from that, what we're attempting to do this time to it. I think it brought a different level to the conversation. So, and that's it.
Thank you. That was quite a robust presentation today. Thank you very much for that. Members of the board, any further questions or comments on anything you just heard? I don't see any. Would somebody like to give me a motion to receive the report, please? Janet and Bill, any comments or questions one last time? Any objection to the receipt of the report? See none, that is approved. Okay, members of the board, that completes our public agenda. We have one item which is of a confidential nature as it pertains to labor relations or employee negotiations. I just want to make sure I read the script that Jessica gave me. So we will be going in camera. I need a motion to go in camera. Jan, did you have a question or you give me a motion?
Just before going camera, can we just do new business just
sure, yeah, we can switch it around
before
yep.
we go in camera?
Okay, number 8, new business.
So thank you. I just wanted to publicly thank Katie Miller, who's a Clearview resident, who was a local champion for the food shelf at the Clearview Library. And I know she spoke up, she got involved, and I think it's just, it's appropriate that we acknowledge that residents can make a difference, and every volunteer and every initiative that comes forward. So thanks to Katie for helping make our Clearview Library a better place.
Very nice, thank you. And thank you, Katie. Any other new business? Okay, we have cleared the new business hurdle. Let's move back to 7.1 and deal with our confidential item, QP 5348 negotiations update. Motion to go in camera, please. Susan and Janet, any objections to going in camera? There are none. We are moving into camera. I'm going to suggest we take a 5-minute bio break, and let's return at 9:10 for our in-camera session. Okay, members of the board, we are back in public session. I report that we met in closed session to discuss a matter relating to labor relations or an employee negotiation. Members of the board, I need a motion to receive the information that we were apprised of during our closed session. Can I get that motion, please? Somebody move it, please. Janet and Pankage, thank you very much. It's not, I guess we can't really debate it, so I'll ask if there's any objections to the receipt of information. There is none, that motion is carried. Members of the board, we are at that point in time of day when we have to say goodbye. I will remind you that your next meeting date is Thursday, the 22nd of April, 2021 at 7 p.m. And I look forward to seeing you all there. Can I get a motion to adjourn our meeting today, please? You don't want to go. Okay, Bill and Andrew, thank you very much. Any objection to the adjournment? I see none. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your time and attention. It's been great.
Good night.
Good night.